Hello, you are very welcome to this edition of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Mulissa. I welcome you all, and certainly we haven't met quite much this year, so I'll begin by saying Happy New Year to you, all the people I have on the panel, but also our viewers and everyone that is to engage with this conversation today, tomorrow, and years to come. You're very welcome to this conversation, and today, you all know we are starting or we are in an election year. Yes, certainly many people will keep highlighting 2026, but we know that election activity is starting in this very year, and the events that lead to the final moments of casting the vote and choosing our leaders at different levels start in this very year. We know that by halfway this year, some activities will be on, and until we get into October, where nominations of the top officers will be happening, and later us heading into campaigns and conclusively the elections. So I want us to have a conversation with you people about your role. I see most of you, if not all of you, are actually leaders in your different communities, and I want us to look at your role as community leaders in making sure the electoral process goes well, but more specifically, we are looking at the voter registration exercise. We know the Electoral Commission of this country is rolling out the registration exercise for people to go in and try to confirm whether they are on the register, to update these registers, to change voting location, and many other things that are involved in there. And I want to find out what is your role as leaders, but also the communities. What are they supposed to do? What is expected of them? And indeed, what should they expect in this electoral year and continuously through the voting process early next year? I am Phillip Mulissa, and I welcome all of you. And before I get into the depth of the conversation, I want to first hear from you where you are, how is the environment, and how is the new year treating your communities. I will start with you, Mr. Muganga Douglas. I know you are in Kyotera, and you are looking into going through this election year, and indeed early next year, you are looking at becoming the MP of Kyotera Town Council. How is Kyotera, and what are the people saying?
Yes, good morning, Philip, and good morning to other panelists. First of all, I wish you a happy and prosperous new year. I must apologize. I miscalculated my time, so I'm a bit on the move. But in any case, this is a community conversation, so I'll be okay to put up my views in the surrounding of my community. This discussion comes at the right time, and going forward, I wish to put up my opinions about the situation in regard to how much the community is informed about the process, and our contribution as leaders in regard to sensitizing them about the process and the challenges that we are facing in regard to that effort, in regard to attitude about electoral laws, the absence of electoral reforms, and the experience of the previous election process that was marred with violence and a lot of rigging. So it's a whole mixture of things, and I look forward to participate in this discussion.
Thank you so much, Douglas, for that, and we can't wait to hear what you have to share with us on this particular subject. Next, I have the Assistant Resident District Commissioner, Kaberamindo District. That is Mr. Peter Arikos. Peter, greetings, welcome to the conversation, and how is Kaberamindo? Bulobi Sam. Sam, greetings, welcome to the conversation.
Here, my environment is okay. In Mbale city, it's very hot, but we are good. I'm glad to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Bulobi Sam. I understand you are the NRM Youth League chairperson in Mbale City, and you should be having a lot of information regarding the electoral process, but also what Mbale is saying about the forthcoming general elections 2026,
yes,
at large, starting in this very year. I want to start with you, Ndugu Arikos Peter. I hope you can hear me well now.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
thank you so much. I want to pick from you to begin with. When you look through the community as the assistant RDC of that particular district, what is the conversation like in regards the electoral year and the electoral activities that are coming? Are the people aware even that we have elections coming?
People are aware. And first, you see, my brother, it's very important for us to know what voter registration is. It's very important for us to know what voter registration is. And when you look at the topic that we are talking about today, it is voter registration. What's the role of community leaders in mobilizing the citizens to register? First, I want to define what voter registration is, and then the role. I want to break down those things. Voter registration is a process. It's the process by which eligible citizens sign up to be included in the official list of voters for the upcoming elections. This process ensures that individuals can exercise their right to vote and helps to maintain the integrity of the electoral system by verifying voter eligibility. So simply, registration typically, it involves providing personal information such as a name, address, and identification details to the relevant electoral authority, and for us, that's now the Electoral Commission. And once registered, places where they can cast their ballots during elections. Now, I want us to as well look at what is the role of community leaders in mobilizing citizens to register. Community leaders play a crucial role in mobilizing citizens to register, to vote by leveraging their influence, trust, and at the end of the day, networks within their communities. So at the end of the day in Kaberamindo, that's what we are currently doing. We are helping people to know that by them going up for voter registration, they will vote the candidates of their choices. They will not miss out in voting the right leaders that they want. Because at the end of the day, we've seen scenarios where people say, we were not able to vote because we were not registered. So if we are to achieve those goals, we have to involve the community. And I want to say that people are excited about this process, and it's going on smoothly. We pray that all comes to pass, because at the end of the day, it's for the benefits of the citizens. It's for the benefits of our country. When you have the right leaders elected, at the end of the day, it benefits all of us.
Thank you so much, Ndugu RDC, for that overview about this particular activity. I want to pick from you, Douglas Muganga, and you, the position you hold, being an aspiring member of parliament in Kyotera. Talk to me. How is the environment like in Kyotera? Are the people registering? Is the activity ongoing? And in any case, are there some challenges that are affecting the activity? Yes, Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Philip. Now, fellow citizens of Uganda that are listening in this program, we must have this discussion with the context in mind. Yes, we are leaders that the community is informed about through radio adverts and TV adverts, but also our community, public function, church, mosques, and community functions. So the people are aware. But what is the context within what is happening? The electoral process has already begun, but the basics which were supposed to be put right within the law have not been properly attended to by the powers that be in Uganda. I want to give an example. And this is important because it affects the perception of the community about their confidence within the electoral process. And that will determine their participation in this process. For instance, before the start of the 2021 electoral process, there was an instruction from the Supreme Court about electoral recommendations that were supposed to be done within electoral reforms. And there was a court ruling on that. And the Attorney General was supposed to follow up on certain things within 1 month and then within 6 months. But we observed that the regime that is reigning supreme in Uganda has contempt of the law as per practice. Within the books, there are laws, but as per practice, the practice is not respected to its full dot. So the recommendations as of now that were given by the Supreme Court in regard to the electoral process have not been followed up with. And that has affected the confidence that the people have. Because remember, the history of our electoral process, if I can speak from Kyotera, there was state-inspired violence, there was state-inspired rigging, and things of that kind. And if the laws had been attended to as by the recommendations from the Supreme Court, surely there would have been confidence built within the community that things were going to be different. But that said, we do our part. We continue to speak to students that are near the age of 18 to go and register with NIRA, and then they get their forms, and they use those forms to register as voters. And then other people that are above 18, we also convince them to do. In other words, even as we wait for the reforms to happen within the electoral process, as per the instructions from the Supreme Court, we have to get prepared so that in case what needs to be done happens, then the community is very prepared for the whole process. But yeah, as people discuss, we need to put in that context that the confidence of the population has been affected by a regime that shows no respect for streamlining electoral laws and the electoral process.
Thank you so much, Douglas, for that submission and very instrumental things you talk about in that regard. I want to hear from you, Rebecca. How is the situation like in your particular location? Have you personally gone to verify your registration status? And indeed, are the people responding to this process, and how is it moving? Yes, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. So I'm in Lira. I sadly would say I have not yet done my voter registration. But for me, one of the key things that I see that is currently challenging is the level of voter awareness and sensitization this time round is not as much amplified as is expected. And the time frame for which this has been given is truly short. For a country like Uganda, I felt this needed a bit of a month or plus for people to take on the voter registration. But also I look at government and EC's collaboration with partners is minimal. For people to get engaged in voter registration, especially the citizenry, we have different classes of citizenry, and there are those that need to be really empowered. For example, I've done work with persons with disabilities, especially deaf, in a community like a rural community out of Kampala. Not everyone has access to the radio because they can't hear, or TV because they are from a far to reach community. How better is the voter registration sensitization exercise being amplified in our community? But then also we look at the facilitation. Sign language interpreters are not even offered. There are no sign language interpreters at most voting spaces. The elderly, how are they being? I don't know how EC has put this into consideration, but there needed to be a lot of conversation on how there is a more support system put for special kinds and groups of people. When you look at the experiences, I've in the past stood as a candidate and lost in 2021 in Kampala. But when you look at the experiences of elections from the rural setting and from the urban area, you find that there are discrepancies. For example, the language and how you mobilize people depends on the season. This side now it is very hot and windy. How are we bringing these voting registration centers nearer to the people? You can't imagine the heat. I am sure in Kaberamindo it is worse. I've been there as well, that it should be so hot now. So are there more strategic moves that government is putting on board to make people register, to encourage people to go extensively to communities, or we are going to still have people sit at one point and expect everyone to go there? People are not going to do that considering our areas.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that. And I think you raise instrumental points that need to be thought out well, but also addressed at different levels of leadership. I want to come to you, Sam. Sam, you are the chairperson of the NRM Youth League in Mbale City. How are the NRM youth responding to this particular exercise? And in any case, paint for us a picture of what is happening in Mbale City as regards the voter registration exercise. Yes, Sam.
Yes, thank you so much. In Mbale City, the young people are excited because personally, I belong to the special interest groups, the youth, and the problem, the problem that young people face when it comes to these elections. I'll be a bit specific on the on the elections of special interest groups. There is little communication, and young people tend not to get enough understanding when such elections of the young people are conducted. You'll find that, like for the case of National Youth Council, these are elections which conducts, and they are part of the roadmap. The information reaching in villages, let's say, like youth council elections start from village elections of the youth, forming the youth structures from village level up to national. There are villages where you can, the entire process has been, there is no youthship structure at village level. So the problem of information is very key, raising enough awareness for the young people to have access to this information so that they can participate and have these structures put in place. So those are some of the problems that we face personally. Yes, I mean, the NRM Youth League structures are at Mbale City level, and apparently I am running for Mbale Youth Council in Mbale City. And for elections of these special interest groups, let's say the youth, the persons with disabilities, we have the councils for elder persons. These are categories of people whose elections are not talked about quite often. And you find that there are a lot of people who would have taken part in different areas. But you realize that it's only people in urban centers. You see, but when we were creating cities, let's say, for instance, here in Mbale City, they annexed the rural areas of Mbale district, rural, and they included them in the city. But when you go into those, they are very deep in the villages, in the mountains, and you can't, there is no way young people there have access to enough information. So I think Electoral Commission needs to work hard and build enough trust among the citizens, educate the people publicly, because people only know that the elections which take place are elections of general elections where everyone is going to participate. All the youths, whether persons with disabilities, from the age of 18 up to 30, they take part in general elections. But there are special elections conducted specifically for the youth leadership structures. It is from these structures that we have to get members of parliament representing the younger people, members of parliament representing people with disabilities, members of parliament representing older persons. All these people are represented in parliament. But at the grassroots level where these elections are conducted, people don't get enough information. Some of them would have wished to participate and even compete for those offices, but there is no enough education. Then also building trust in these elections.
Thank you,
Even in
Sam.
general, even yes.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And you raised those very important points. I'll pick from you. I'll pick more from you a little later as we proceed with the conversation. I want to come back to the RDC. I know you've had a lot of the things these people are raising, but specifically since you sit in the resident district commissioners' chambers, I want to hear from you the security perspective. This is an activity that involves bringing together people, bringing together people's information. You mentioned giving out your names and locations and so many things. How is security involved in this particular activity? And indeed, should Ugandans be confident that they are actually secure as they undertake this particular process, but going forward through the electoral process? Yes, Mr. Peter.
Thank you so much. You have asked me how security is involved. We are very much involved in these electoral processes. Just a week ago, I was attending a workshop in Soroti where all security personnel from prisons, police, the RDCs, the regional prisons commander, the DSOs, all of us were in attendance. The youth chairpersons, the persons with a disability. So at the end of the day, security plays a very big role in managing any electoral process that we often go into. And one of the ways that we get involved is through advocacy and awareness. We have meetings with the people, the community leaders, and we actually most times have these meetings with the citizens about the significance of voting, the registration process, and the impact of their participation on governance. For instance, religious leaders in Kenya have urged new voters to embrace their civic duty by registering to vote, emphasizing the opportunity to shape their destiny through electoral parties. At the end of the day, as in this, one of it is organizing registration drives. As leaders, we coordinate and lead voter registration campaigns, often conducting door-to-door initiatives to encourage sign-ups. And we also do a lot with cultural structures. You see, when you utilize cultural structures, it helps you out because there are those people who fear their names to be registered. For example, in Kaberamindo, we have a group of people by the names Mbale. They don't want anything to deal with the computer. They think like that is the end time. Oh no, these are the 666. They don't want anything to deal with the computer. So at the end of the day, we end up utilizing the cultural structures, because in utilizing the cultural structures, the leaders use the traditional structures to mobilize members. They use these traditional structures to make sure that the thought funding to facilitate mobilization of their community to register as voters, intending to use the traditional methods and the cultural structures, and then addressing the logistical challenges. That now goes to the government, collaborating with the authorities, responsible authorities, the electoral commissions, and so much more, my brother. So at the end of the day, as a security, we are heavily involved in this when it comes to deployment, protecting those that are going to conduct the elections, and a lot.
Thank you so much, Peter Arikos, for that. And the public picks confidence when you say that security is very involved in this particular activity, and indeed, that is what the country needs to hear, that there is activity that is ensuring they are safe and protected. Douglas, look, we talk about a couple of these things, but you've had, there is a common concern, you raised it, and indeed some raised it, that people seem not to have enough information, and in any case, they may not even be interested in this process. How can we attract all the people in the communities to come out and participate in the registration and in the end go out to cast their vote? Yes, Douglas.
Thank you, Philip. Philip, in the ideal sense of it, we would love the Ugandan population to massively engage in the registration and cross-checking their voter situation and all that. But the reality is, all is not well. And all is not well because of a bad governance regime that we are faced with. And that's why, for us who are members of the National Unity Platform, our message to the population is that due to the rampant abuse of the basic rules of good governance by the current regime, we advocate for the population to join us in efforts to bring about change. Because let me give you an example from where I come from in Kyotera. In the last electoral process, they kidnapped a number of pro-change citizens. Many were tortured, others died, others we do not know their whereabouts, no? But others were released and they told their story of torture and all that. And this happened because it was political persecution, because they supported the pro-change movement. So, in all honesty, it is difficult for the message to sink into the population without those answers being responded to. But that said, we are trying our best and convincing those that can take on the message to participate in the process. But we have a security officer within the discussion panel, who is the RDC. He needs to give answers. How do you respond to a population that needs answers about the abuses that were committed by security forces in the previous electoral process? And there's no remedy to that and all that. How does he respond to that? We need to hear his response in regard to that, so that what is the way forward? There is an ongoing movement by the Democratic Alliance that is moving around various stakeholders, trying to pick up their opinions about electoral reforms and all that. And I think that's a positive endeavor that is happening. We need serious commitment for those that happen to be in power about electoral reforms, so that the population can trust the process. But as it stands, even when you talk to people, they say, okay, yes, we are going to participate, but we are very sure about how rigged the presidential vote will be. In other words, they don't trust that their vote counts, especially on the presidential contest. So they will participate with a lot of mistrust and lack of confidence in the process. So we need to attend to that, and it will make everything easier. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Douglas. I want to hear from you, Rebecca. Look, we keep saying these things, and we go on, and every other day the participation in the election figures are going down. When you look at the figures that participated in the 2011.
I think there was a question my brother posed it to me. I don't know if
kindly respond to it. Use 2 minutes to respond to that as I bring in Rebecca.
Yeah, let me respond to him. You see, first of all, our discussion today is about voter registration. What's the role of community leaders in mobilizing citizens to register? We are talking about people who are going to vote, my colleague, my brother there, and he's lamenting about electoral violence and all that. We've seen a lot of this in most countries. At the end of the day, there are some people who will want to break the rules that govern any election. I want to acknowledge the concerns about electoral violence, but my assurance to everyone is that maintaining peace and security during the electoral process is your top priority. Why would you want to provoke security officers who are doing their job? We are working closely with the law enforcement agencies, community leaders, and other stakeholders to ensure a safe and fair environment for all citizens. We are implementing robust measures, including increased security presence that is going to happen at polling stations, community sensitization programs, and swift action against any form of incitement and violence. At the end of the day, we shall not run away from taking action against any form of incitement and violence. I urge all leaders and citizens to promote peaceful dialogue and cooperation. Let us remember that a peaceful election is crucial for the stability and development of our community. So let's all work together to uphold our democratic values and ensure a violence-free election. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you so much, Arikos, to that, and I hope that gives a response to Douglas in terms of his concerns. Rebecca, what is the role of the civil society in this process? And in any case, are they active? Are they doing what they're supposed to do to make sure people go to register and continue to participate in the elections? Yes, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. So civil society for a long time has been patent in helping in voter registration and especially through the whole election process. Now, when you look at in the previous past, we've been having, and actually currently, we have a very strong shrinking civic space. And this has affected civil society because civil society works at checking and correcting government. But in the recent years, for example, let's give an example of 2021, we had organizations that were being shut down because there were allegations that they were supporting certain political parties and had to take on through the election process until after the election, then they were reopened. So it gives me a question to actually, I keep on laughing when I hear fanatics of the NRM defending it carelessly because, for example, you see, you're going to wake up and say security is tight, security is okay, it's protecting. But even the presence of too much security at a voter registration process creates intimidation. And that itself is questionable. So how does Electoral Commission and government work with civil society into sensitizing without actually thinking that the only way people will feel comfortable is actually when security is there? We already know as a country that our security force is questionable to the citizens. They feel they are already bent on one side. So these are not people who we should actually be having a conversation on ensuring that they are actually at the voting space. They shouldn't be there. They should actually not be there. I feel the people who should actually be amplifying this should actually be more of the political and community leaders and not security. Emphasizing the need for security at a voter registration is itself disastrous. Because they are keeping the machines with their guns. That's already intimidation at the beginning of an election process. For me, civil society, I see it as the beacon of hope in our election process because all through the years, they have stood their ground, checked on government, checked electoral commission, checked the opposition. And so our role continues to be collaborative partners who are going to sit with all these partners and guide the country. When you look at, for example, CS-BAG, or you look at these, we know the organizations that do this work, Civic Space, Center for Constitutional Governance, you find that even this talk show itself is an amplifying ground for the citizens to actually be aware of what is ongoing. Because when you go to rural communities, you're not going to find people having this conversation. So civil society, unlike government, is setting ground for this. They are setting community talk shows for this. They are setting community barazas for these conversations, empowering people. Every other time you find that there is a civic education conversation happening somewhere, and it is being run by civil society. And government needs to appreciate this. So civil society is actually always at the center of amplifying the role of elections. But back to something that we discussed earlier, I wanted to talk on the challenges. While we talked a lot on civil society's role, they extremely go through a lot of challenges. And it's not just the shutting down, we've also had arrests in the recent years of not only political leaders, but civil society leaders that are strongholds in talking about electoral rights. And so as we get into the election season, civil society needs to strengthen its capacities and especially find solidarity and support within themselves, considering there's been a lot of questions around the NGO Bureau and how it is operating and the discrepancies it is giving and questions it is being used by government to shut down other civil society organizations. But most
Thank
especially,
you.
Pardon?
Please conclude on that.
I conclude. But most especially, I would want to say everything goes back to the citizen. It's not going to just be civil society. It's not going to be, I get irritated when I hear security in election. It's all about the citizens. And it's about changing a mindset and the information that is being shared. Currently, civil society is doing its part, but the misinformation is coming from the political wing. And this is something that is patent to them. And so there needs to be a lot of re-informing and continuously informing and dismissifying misinformation that is being spread by the political wing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that. Sam, many times the National Resistance Movement, the party where you belong, is accused of rigging the register. Are you doing more of the same this time? Or there is a difference, Sam?
Now, when it comes to that comes to building trust among the community members who are taking the center stage in these elections. I will give you of one scenario in the last elections. I was supporting, my candidate was a NRM flag bearer for member of parliament, but you realize that it was the opposition. The opposition took the leader and it did the rigging of the elections. And my candidate was asked while in a meeting that, did you happen to pass by the tables? Literally, they were meaning nti wayitako kumeza eyabantu ababala akalulu. So he said that he said for him, he didn't know that he had to pass by the registrar or give them something before his votes could be protected. But there is one I will quote one Russian, I think it's Joseph Stalin, who said that in any electoral process, it is enough that people know there was an election, because he added that the people who do the voting, they decide nothing, and those who count the votes decide everything. So that is something that my NRM candidate didn't know. So you realize that there is that misinformation, and that one breaks trust among the voters when they get it. That's why security is very key, and everybody has to play their role. Like the other DC said, security is very important, because when somebody has looked for support from the public and he has been supported, and you find that somebody has rigged his votes, it becomes very uncomfortable for people in the future elections to trust in the process. So community leaders, like this discussion is all about, community leaders have a big role to play, because they can easily influence and overcome the misinformation about the voting process, and people can be able, especially in these coming elections, we need to fight the misinformation, and everybody has to play their role. If the registrar of elections can lead in the rigging process, then it means that we need, security has a very big part to play, and restore back trust in the hearts of the voters. So that's what I can talk about when it comes to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are still on. Thank you, Sam. You are still on Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV, and we're discussing the voter registration exercise that is underway by the Independent Electoral Commission of the Republic of Uganda, and we are trying to see what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and where can we improve. I want to hear from you. This is a general question to all of you. I want to pick what everyone thinks. You know, many elections in different countries are determined by a series of issues. In this country, usually many people accuse of our election as either going out of emotion, out of tribe, out of religion, or any of those things related to that. What particular issues do you think are going to shape the election we are going to as a country? What issues are going to be very instrumental that will determine who wins this election that is coming at the level of presidency, members of parliament, the special interest groups, leaders in the local government, and also, yes, I'll start with you. Let me start with you, Muganga. What issues do you think
My
will...
brother, I beg your pardon with that question.
What issues do you think will determine who wins the election that is coming in this country?
Thank you, Philip, for that question. For us, what I gather from the community back in Kyotera is the issue of public service delivery. The population is concerned about poor service delivery. I can tell you that in my home district of Kyotera, the only tarmac road that you can talk of that passes through the district is the main highway. Is the main highway, the Masaka Kyotera Mutukula highway, and even it is being reconstructed. So and the other roads are not well managed because not enough resources are channeled to the local governments. But also, why aren't there enough resources channeled to the local governments? Because misappropriation by the central government, theft of public funds by those in power, which leaves very little resources for use at the local governments. So in the end, you have poor services, poor public services at the schools, at the health centers, and even in regard to security, there is a lot of small crimes, theft of animals, theft of crops from plantations, because not enough resources are given to the police stations to effectively do their work. So it's an issue of poor public service delivery that has been delivered by the NRM. And for us, our issue is we need to change so that we get a team more efficient and more patriotic about the concerns of the citizens. So for us, that is the issue. But also,
Thank you.
Within the discussion we've been having, an issue has come up that perhaps the center of our problems are systemic. Perhaps we need to attend to the system of government. Perhaps the centralization has not effectively worked for most communities. In other words, a lot of taxes are presented by a number of districts, but not a fair share is given back to them. So people are discussing, does this unitary government work, or should we consider going for a referendum for consideration of a federal system of government? Those are also issues at the ground that we're talking about, because they are fed up of demanding and they don't get positive in regard to public services community.
Thank you. Thank you, Douglas. Yes, Rebecca, what issues are going to shape the election?
Considering that our country has become very youthful, I look at issues to do with youth employment and stability and security in Uganda. For example, we know Uganda in the past has always, every time we come into election season, there's always a lot of questions around. After the election, are we going to have war? Is there going to be insecurity? So the issue of stability and security is patent because this will affect the economic and social well-being of Ugandans. And so while we get into the election season, I know Ugandans are going to look for a presidential candidate that offers them security, that offers them stability, and especially economic growth for young people.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Sam, What issues do you see shaping the election, especially in Mbale and that particular region?
Here in
Yes,
Bugisu region, and especially Mbale State in particular, the majority of the voters are young people. Like Rebecca put it, young people, there is a lot of unemployment, there is a lot of insecurity. We have a lot of we have poor roads, we have poor health facilities, especially when you go to rural districts like Bududa, Namisindwa, Bulambuli, where the leaders have not done enough to address these issues that are affecting the most of the young population. So unemployment, one, it will lead to corruption. You will have leaders who are going to buy their way through to parliament, to local councils, by using a lot of money. Meaning that because a young man who is unemployed, you will come to him and you asking for support, he will ask you, he slept hungry, he didn't have supper. You will definitely have to give him money so that he will be able, even electoral commission, because some electoral centers are very far from where people are staying. So corruption is going to might take center stage if leaders don't come up and sensitize the members of the public about the voter bribery. That one is going to take center stage, like it has always been, because for the past 2 elections I've taken part, always it is very hard for someone to go and vote without asking for money. So we need to educate our people, and using this remaining period of 1 year for our leaders to ensure that they address these challenges of poor roads, poor health facilities, fighting corruption in local governments, especially here in Mbale City. Corruption is at a very high center stage. Local leaders are taking money from the public for jobs to enter civil service. Someone to get to become a primary school teacher, he has to pay like 2 million. Now, such a person cannot have trust in voting leaders that are credible enough. So there is a lot of information that needs to be passed through educating the masses in voting, in fighting corruption in elections. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I want to pick from you, Peter. What issues do you see shaping the election?
Thank you so much. I am going to give the positive and negative issues. The positive ones for our government, and then the negative ones that normally affect our opposition. First, when you look at the issues, there are several key issues that typically determine who wins elections in Uganda, reflecting on the priorities and concerns of the electorate. When we look at an issue of economic development, candidates who present viable plans for economic growth, job creation, and poverty reduction often resonate with the voters, especially in areas struggling with unemployment and economic stagnation. And then infrastructure development, which most of my colleagues have actually raised, but they have not explained it in detail. Promises to improve infrastructure, including roads, electricity, healthcare facilities, and schools play a significant role in gaining voter support, particularly in rural areas. And then now security and stability, for which our government, the NRM, is best known for. Ensuring peace and security is a critical concern. So candidates who convincingly address issues of internal security, crime reduction, and conflict resolution often gain a significant advantage. Now we go to healthcare and education, corruption and governance, youth empowerment, agriculture and rural development, so many things. I also want to talk about some issues that affect the opposition, and one of it is lack of unity. There is a lot of fragmentation and infighting within the opposition, and this is going to weaken their collective strength. We already seeing it. This is a big win for us, the NRM. This is going to weaken, and it has already weakened their collective strength. When opposition parties fail to unite behind a common candidate or agenda, it dilutes their impact. So at the end of the day, these are leaders who are confused. These are leaders who are just after what they will benefit from what they are going in for. They are not coming in to serve the common people. They don't have the people at heart. And that's why you see any fightings of who is the superior, of who is the big dog in the game. And all this is exposing their weakness. And then they are weak grassroots structures. Most of these oppositions you see making a lot of noise in Kampala, they don't have grassroots structures in the rural areas. Ineffective and undeveloped grassroots networks. And this is going to affect so much of those people that are coming in for presidential and all that. Then limited resources. There are so many issues, my brother, but I think the issues that I've raised are kind of pertinent. I want to thank you once more for having us. Thank you for having me. I had actually arrived from Nairobi about 40 minutes ago before joining you in. And I think that's why you see I had that delay in joining you. But otherwise, thank you so much for always having me in. And I hope that what we have shared will be for the benefit of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arikos Peter, the Assistant RDC, Kaberamindo District. Now, colleagues, as we get to the end of the conversation, our elections have been described very many times as violent, as not free, as not fair, as not credible. I want each one of you to paint for me a picture of the kind of election they anticipate to see come 2026. What election should Ugandans expect this time? I'll start with you, Douglas. What kind of election do you expect to see in 2026? I hear you.
2026, I'm skeptical. As a patriot, as a citizen that loves his country, I dream of an election where there is freedom for every citizen to freely express their aspirations, their political aspirations, their cultural aspirations, their economic, But the current situation in Uganda, the reality is that we have a pseudo democracy. In the true sense of it, we have a military dictatorship that is in charge of affairs in the country. And how does a regime like that conduct election? We have institutions that are abused in a way that some officers within the security institutions are forced to take on biased, partial practices, and that affects the electoral process, So you see, a colleague made a point earlier in the discussion that she's concerned about seeing security officers at polling stations and all that. But this tells you about the civil-military relations. In actual sense, citizens shouldn't be afraid of seeing professional security officers within their vicinity. But the environment of fear is a history of their experience, them as civilians, in regard to the security officers. If the normal experience between a citizen and the security officer is one of brutality, is one of unfairness, then that creates fear even within the electoral process. But otherwise, it would be okay for security officers to be around to keep law and order and things of that kind. So my expectation within 2025, 2026, I'm concerned because I haven't seen anything that is realistic, that is going to deliver something different from what we experienced in the 2021 period, you know? So I'm concerned as a citizen, and all the signals are there. The communications we are getting from powerful people that occupy important positions of authority. For instance, the army commander of the Uganda Armed Forces, General Kainerugaba Muhoozi, when you check the communication he was giving on social media about how he was threatening the pro-change leader and what he will do to his supporters, you know, I mean, we were lucky to get his thoughts, but this is the situation. And even when he put out those statements, he was not reprimanded by the commander-in-chief, who is supposed to be his boss, you know? So in other words, perhaps the commander-in-chief seconded what he was talking about. So that is the environment we are in. But what can we do as citizens? We have to keep the faith. We have to keep hopeful. We have to keep strong and unite about issues of restoration of good governance. The issues that we raise are not necessarily partisan, that they belong to the National Unity Platform or Democratic Party or Uganda People's Congress or NRM. The issues that we are putting forward are issues of justice and freedom, issues of patriots, issues of statesmanship. You know, we have one man that has ruled us for 40 years, going to 40 years, longer than even I've lived as a human being. I mean, sincerely, in
Thank you, Douglas.
You know, so what we are faced with is something that is bigger than just the common things of you know, that you would think of, but we are faced with a monumental period where we have to decide whether we continue with the status quo, which has been bad, which has been tainted by abuse of human rights by the state operatives, state-inspired theft of public funds, poor service delivery, and all that. And we are saying we do not want to proceed with that status quo. We have to unite and deliver change that can give us more patriotic, more efficient team of government in the next 5 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Douglas Muganga, for that. Sam, what election are you looking at come 2026?
Come 2026, I'm looking at a free and fair elections, because enough time for us to, as government, to prepare. We are just in January, and elections are less than, at least we have 11 months to prepare. So I would call upon the leaders, especially the Electoral Commission, the security, the ministries responsible in seeing that we get a free and fair election, is to have all those type of instruments put in place to deliver this free and fair elections to Ugandans. I have a lot of confidence that we are having this discussion is early enough, as early as a year before elections take place. So I think it is very important for everybody to play their role, like the security, the other DC said. Security is very important. We need to have leaders come together, discuss, and agree, be it opposition, be it NRM. At the end of the day, we want the best for Uganda. We don't want the best for NUP. We don't want the best for FDC. There is nothing like the best for NRM. We are looking at the best for the country as a whole. So we need to come together. What can unite us? There is a lot of things that can unite us as a country, compared to a few anomalies here and there that divide us. So I call for unity. I call for, we put tribalism aside, we put religions aside, we put regions where people come from aside and come together as a country, so that we can deliver this for the good of Uganda. for the good of East Africans, for the good of Africans, and for the good of the Black
Thank
people.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for that. And lastly, Rebecca, what kind of election do you anticipate to see come 2026?
Thank you. I anticipate an election where I feel and pray that the citizenry of Uganda are fully engaged and involved in the election, and that the turning and telling of everything as it's supposed to be, that we don't have a lot of, for once in this country, let us have an election that is not militarized, that have the people fully involved and engaged in the whole process, and are fully able to accept the decision of that election. For good and my country.
Wow. Rebecca, Achom, Adile, Wii Tuke Fender Initiative. I thank you so much for your views and for making time to the conversation. Mr. Douglas Muganga Douglas, aspiring MP, Kyotera County Council. Thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. Mr. Sam Bulobi, Chairperson, Mbale City NRM Youth. Thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. And Arikos Peter, Assistant Resident District Commissioner, Kaberamindo District. Thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. And indeed, to you, our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance and all our partners for putting this together, and special thanks to the technical team and indeed all the people that give us company in executing this duty. From us, we say good evening and may you have freedom always.